Welcome. I call to order the meeting of the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment for September 6th, and welcome everyone here. Before we start our business, I'd like to bring up a few things. Everyone pretty much has a cell phone or other devices, and I ask that you turn it to airplane mode or turn it off or something so we won't disrupt our business today. Also, if you haven't already done so and you're not the applicant and you wish to speak, you need to sign up so we can call you to speak when the item is called. The applicant, as stated, if you look at your agenda, which is out there, copies are out there on the back of the agenda, it gives you all the information you need to know about the Board of Adjustment and the type of items that are before you. And so I won't go into details for that. But basically, we will call the applicant as the item is called. Those who wish to either speak in support or protest or otherwise will be called if I have the sheet to call them. And then if there's any protest, any rebuttal, the applicant will be allowed to make a rebuttal. So we're ready to receive the minutes of the August 16, 2018 meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
I move to receive the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second to receive the minutes of August 16, 2018. All in favor, let's cast your votes. I have to go. Didn't mine not? Do we have ours on? We always have a malfunction. I apologize. Is it my malfunction? Thank you. The minutes have been received. Next, we have items for continuance, requests, and withdrawals.
We have one item, item number 11, case number 14527. The applicant is requesting to withdraw that case.
So the item is withdrawn, is that correct?
That's correct.
Any requests by the public? Is there any requests by the public for any continuances or withdrawals? So I need them. We have no motions for continuance, is that correct?
That was all we had for motions by applicants, unless anybody else has anything.
Okay, so now we're into our public hearing. We have nothing on the consent docket and items requiring separate vote. Would you please read the first one?
We have item number 1, case number 14489, request for a variance to the dumpster location requirement in the I-2 Moderate Industrial District, located at 823 North Villa Avenue.
Will the applicant come forward?
Kathy Potts with Reese Associates, 9211 Lake Evner Parkway, Suite 300, here in Oklahoma City. What we're asking for is a variance of having the dumpster located behind the structural face of the facility. And I don't know if there's another graphic with this. So in the site plan, you can see, I want to thank the city for, anyway, you can see where the location of the dumpster is. We have actually increased our parking from what that is showing there. For us, our understanding at the very beginning of the project and with the owner is that the front of the building would be facing the new street that runs east and west. Due to the requirements of the owner and the site, we have a very skinny frontage in a long building. However, when we got an address on Villa, that changed where the front of our building is, and our dumpster, you can see, is on the east side. For us to relocate it, the best place would be, I wish you had the updated one, would be there in the northeast corner behind the building, which happens to be the entryway for the Head Start program, and next to the playground for the Head Start program. It's shown, you can see the square that extends from the top of the building there. So we are asking that we be allowed to keep it at its current location. It will be facing west. So we feel that the intent of the code, which is to hide unsightly dumpster and garbage, would actually be hidden at this location better than it would be behind the east face of the building when we'd have to rotate the dumpster, and then it would actually be facing Villa Moore. I did have some graphics to show that, see if they came up. And if not, then I'm going to request that I be able to pass. There we go. If we could just go back to, we have some views of driving down Villa. There we go. This is Villa as you're driving south, and I don't know if you can even see where the dumpster location would be, which pretty much goes to our point. And then the next slide is driving north on Villa, which once again, you don't really see the dumpster. It is actually where that small stone wall is, kind of in the right middle part of that visual. So we feel that the dumpster is hidden. It's inside a stone enclosure with a wooden gate. The site slopes 5 feet down from the surface of Villa, so it's a little lower anyway. And then the next slide shows actually what we keep on going. You had one of the face of the building. That is what we had considered to be the front or face of the building, which faces the private road. And then, we learned that we wouldn't have an address off of that road. We were a little too far down the design path when we found that out. So we're just requesting that we be able to keep the dumpster as it's currently shown.
Any questions from the board?
I think you addressed this point, but one of the unfavorable considerations was that there appears to be space on the property to locate the dumpster in accordance with the code requirement. I think you did address that just by saying you think that this is a more optimal location.
Well, since this is the front of the building, to the west of those structural columns, the dumpster could fit anywhere. It could fit anywhere in there, but it is the front and the approachable part of the building. Now, we could put it over to the left a little bit, but that puts it right in front of a transformer for OG&E, and they have their requirements of clearance for the transformer to be able to bring in their trucks. And then, so the only other area behind that structural grid is the one to the north that is right by our Head Start entry and the Head Start playground. We would prefer not to have a dumpster at that location.
Yeah, if there's no one else that wanted to be heard, I can make a motion.
I think you're the only one that signed up to be heard today. So are we ready for a motion?
I'd move to approve application 14489 for the reasons that it meets the statutory requirements for a variance.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those, please cast your votes. I'm trying. The motion, it passed.
Thank you very much.
We have item number 2, case number 14513, request for a variance to the maximum square footage and number of signs in the R1 Single Family Residential District located at 8500 Northwest 23rd Street.
Hello, my name is David Reed. Address is 4144 Dogwood Lane, Spalpa, Oklahoma. I'm here to represent Putnam City Schools. And I guess our request is that Putnam City West High School is a large campus. It is surrounded by a neighborhood and zoned R1, which basically means we have one sign. We have multiple buildings on this campus, and we're currently constructing a new baseball stadium and a new football stadium. We'd like to be able to put not only the brand of the school, which is a giant W, as you see up there for West, as well as identify where the tickets are being sold and kind of some of the team is Patriots, to locate that on the building. None of these signs are self-illuminated. They will all be illuminated by lights shining onto them. so they would only be on during games.
Go into a little more detail about the number of buildings and the type of signage that you're requesting, and do you have any of those up already?
No, ma'am. None of the signage is on these two projects. I'm actually the architect for these two projects, and these are, it's a new press box for the football stadium as well as a baseball stadium. So these two are brand-new buildings on the campus. I want to say there's probably 8 or 9 other buildings on this campus that are existing, and I believe there's signage on those buildings currently. I was not part of those, but I did see, recognize when we applied for the sign permit that this.
I see on the application it says you're requesting 7 signs with a total square footage of 580 square feet to identify each building. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of questions. I can not support your application as presented. I am all about directional signs. I was in a parking garage yesterday and was on the 3rd floor trying to go into a hotel to meet one of their guests and ended up having to walk a block in the alley because there was no signage that said just around the corner was a public elevator. And so directional signage I am very much in support of. What I am going to object to is the branding, the signage that has to do with branding. First of all, the school systems, have issues with teacher pay and many other issues. It seems to me that you could have the directional signage that I think is appropriate and use the money that you were going to spend on this other signage, for another purpose. I mean, the schools certainly have other needs. So when it comes to branding, I'm not on board. So the big W, I wouldn't support. Home of the Patriots, I would have trouble supporting. Putnam City West, identifying the school where they are is fine. The signage above the ticket windows, I think I could support. And Patriots, identifying the field as the baseball field, I am fine with. But the other signage that may be superfluous or more related to branding of the team or the school, I would have trouble supporting.
Thank you.
Any other board members with questions?
This might not be fair to ask you. I know you mentioned that you didn't have a role in the existing signage that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you happen to know, though, whether this is consistent with some of the existing signage that's there right now?
As far as the type of sign is consistent with those?
The type, the scale, the size?
Yes, sir. Other than the W's. The branding is primarily for athletic, to identify this is the athletic camp or side of campus. On the front of the high school, I believe they've got the Patriot, large Patriot sign with the Patriot face on there, which was an older logo. The W is kind of their sports logo now, and but as far as all the word type, that's pretty much the same font and same size and scale that's on the rest of the campus.
Okay.
Would you be willing to amend your application in light of Mr. Austin's comments?
As far as removing
The items that
The items
Mr.
that he-
Austin referred to and supporting?
I'm certainly happy to discuss that with my client, Putnam City Schools. I know that, and I understand, Jeff, my wife is a first grade teacher in public schools, and there is certainly a lot of other needs in public schools. It's my understanding, though, until the legislature changes bond money versus what can be sent to the
I
classroom.
understand. I'm just saying that, there are many needs, and the thing that I want is when somebody pulls into that campus, for them to be able to find easily,
Sure.
the destination and to know where they are. That I'm very much in favor of. So identifying, the baseball stadium or the football stadium as that, identifying where the ticket windows is fine, but some of the branding, Home of the Patriots, I mean, you know where you are. I mean,
Well, correct, and I will just put this out there, that as part of high school connection, high school, I guess, call it rah-rah, or just sense of pride in your school, this seems to be pretty close to near the hearts of not just the administration of Putnam City Schools, but their athletic department. And they have 3 high schools. They have PC North, PC Original, and now PC West. This is the first football stadium that PC West has ever had on its campus. They're basically really wanting to put out there that we are West, and we're excited to be here, and we want everybody that enters into the stadium to be excited and jacked up to support their team. So
The other thing that we consider is the statutory standards, because, I mean, your request is very excessive.
yes,
And hardships that are self-imposed are not deemed hardships that we consider. And so I think, you know, it would be appropriate to go back to them and say, we want you to have, you know, the appropriate signage, the minimum necessary to make sure that people can find, you know, and be in the right place and know where they are. But I'm going to have trouble with anything that's associated with branding, although I know, you know, they're proud of the program and they want to. But for me, this is not maybe the appropriate.
We can grant you a continuance, so you would be able to go back and discuss this matter
Okay.
and then come back. I would like to weigh in just a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
I do think that schools are different, like I said about churches and different things, and that is that's a big campus. It's a huge campus with a number of buildings. And so I think for sure the directional signs and maybe a branding of some kind, but I thought there was something on the building itself that identified it somewhere, or do you have anything on the building?
on these 2 buildings, it's just the Putnam City West and the W that is their logo. You know,
Okay.
it was discussed, do we put a giant Patriot head right there, or that's the W? We felt that the W itself was a smaller footprint, if you will, of a brand than a giant Patriot face.
Would you like to request another?
Yes, ma'am.
continuance?
Yes, ma'am. Because I would like to, again, I need to verify that my client's good with that, and
I will say, just for your purposes, when you go back to your client or for the purposes of the board, I'm not particularly opposed to your application as is. I don't think that it's within our power to dictate what type of sign or how funds get spent or anything like that. I think that schools are unique, as the chair said. I'm not convinced that there's a difference if this is a Patriot head or a W, you know, identifying your sports complex, and whether that would make a difference to the board doesn't particularly make a difference to me. I think schools need their own signing codes that's just not provided for right now. And for those reasons, I'm not particularly against your application. I could support a modified application, or I could support the application as is, depending on what the rest of the board wants to do. But I thought it was important to convey my thoughts to you.
thank you. Thank you very much.
I think from the perspective of what I hear here and what I see in your application, I think that maybe a continuance would be in your best advantage.
Yes, sir.
And so I would pass that on.
May I request a continuance, please?
Sorry. You want a continuance to September 20th?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to continue case number 14513 to the September 20th.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now cast your votes. The continuance was granted to September the 20th.
Thank you very much. Is that all for me?
Item number 3, case number 14514, request for a variance to permit an electrified fence and a single-strand wire fence over 2.5 feet in height, variance to maximum front yard fence height, front yard fencing material, side yard fence height and fence material in the DBD Downtown Business District located at 1033 South Walker Avenue.
Okay, I'm Michael Pate. I'm with the Electric Guard Dog. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. Corporate address is 5000 Assembly Street, Suite 1. Thank you again for seeing me. From what I understand, a few of you folks are not familiar with us, so I'm going to go ahead and explain what we do first. We are a security company. We guard large outdoor storage areas, or small ones, as this is the case, with an electric security fence. That electric security fence is powered by a 12-volt battery. We are never connected to the electrical infrastructure at all. We keep that 12-volt battery charged with a couple of solar panels. We have an energizer or a capacitor that basically takes that 12 volts and amplifies it over 1.3 seconds to somewhere between 7,000 and 9,000 volts. Once that energizer is loaded, mechanically it cannot hold any more energy and releases that energy down the interior fence line back to an alarm panel. And what we're looking for is a really nice, clean return of energy to the alarm panel. In my world, that is about 2,000 volts. So my alarm is sitting there watching this return every 1.3 seconds. Click, click, click. If the energy drops below 2,000 volts for 5 consecutive pulses, which is about 7 seconds, I'm setting the alarm off, audibly on the site, and silently back into Columbia, South Carolina to my call center, and I go through a call list to verify the alarm. So, Mr. Merchant, if you're on my call list, I'm going to call you at 2:30 in the morning. Mr. Merchant, you have a break on the northern perimeter, 220 feet from the northeast corner. What would you like to do? Well, I'm sitting at home at 2:30 in the morning. Let me bring that up on my Wi-Fi because we've got cameras associated with this device. And you look at that fence line. Bad thunderstorm took out the trees on the corner, knocked the fence down. Let's button it up, guys, and go back to bed. Or I got 5 guys with a flatbed truck, got a hole in my fence. They're robbing me blind. Please call the local police department. It's called a verified alarm. When you get a verified alarm, the police will respond. So that's basically what we do. This is probably my 15th or 20th excursion into Oklahoma City for these. Yes, ma'am, you had a question?
You're asking for, I believe, 5 variances. Is that correct? Could you go over what you're asking the variance for,
Well,
please?
basically, what this device is, it's a 10-foot tall, 20-strand electric security fence. It's always inside of the existing fence. So there are actually 2 fences there. The exterior fence, by standard, must be at least 6 feet tall. Then we're going to 10 feet. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. I don't even know what the 5th one is. Front height, front yard, side. Yeah, so basically running across the yards, front and side. We basically install the 10-foot fence behind the existing fence lines. There always must be a permitted minimum 6-foot fence in front of the electric security fence. And that's done basically for safety reasons so that the casual walker by won't touch it. It's a safe and reliable device. If you know what a cattle or a livestock fence is, that's basically what we are, except we operate at much, much lower voltages than those two.
I believe your existing fence has barbed wire. Is that correct?
I have not seen it, but if it does, we'll be willing to take that down. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I believe when it was reviewed by Downtown Business, I believe it was when it was reviewed by DVD, it was conditioned, the recommendation was conditioned on you removing that.
Okay.
Any of the barbed wire and anything like that.
And we're fine with that, Ms. Lewis. The reason we are is because any kind of wire on the top of the existing fence can actually get blown in by the wind or some other reason, and it actually will ground out the electric security fence. So we want that gone. So we will take that down. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You have to justify a hardship or something unique, and if you'll just explain a little bit why this is required in that area, how it will impact any view from the street and that kind of thing, just a little bit.
Basically, it will not impact any view at all. The reason it won't is because it's 20 strands of wire separated about 4 inches apart behind an existing fence, and the gauge of the wire is smaller than the gauge of the existing fence wire, so it basically disappears. Now, you'll see up here there is a sign that says, warning, electric fence in English and Spanish, 7,000 volts, international symbol for shock, and we're required to place those about every 10 meters along the fence line. That's part of the standard. The reason we have a hardship here is because there's a high crime area. These folks have been broken into continually, over and over and over again, and what we basically do is stop crime cold.
I have a question with regard to children, because it's abuts residential areas, and you know, have what is called the attractive nuisance doctrine kind of thing, where you want to make sure that no children will be harmed in any way if this fence were in place. Can you address that?
Yes, ma'am. Basically, we test and label the fence to the international standard, the IEC standard 60335-2-76. You can look it up, or I'll be glad to send you a copy of that. Basically, what that does, it makes sure that when you install the fence, when you build the capacitors, that they will not harm or injure anybody. Part of that safety regimen is also having the perimeter fence up, and we're separated from the perimeter fence at about 12 inches or so. The standard says 100 to 200 millimeters, which is about 4 to 8 inches. We usually separate a little farther, right about a foot. You really can't touch it if you're doing that.
I don't believe there were any protests. Is that correct? Did anybody? I don't have anybody who signed up to speak in opposition. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, you said that the hardship here was that your client has been broken into numerous times, and just anecdotally, can you tell us how many times, if you know, or anything about that?
Well, I do believe, did we send the police reports in on this one? We did not? Okay. I had to ask that question because sometimes we do. Well, Mr. Donaldson, basically what happens is these folks who basically call me, something's happened there. I'm not cheap is why. But, you know, they keep getting broken into. Most of the time when they're being broken into, it's basically vandalism. Most folks aren't really stealing anything, they're just tearing things up. So to keep people from tearing things up in there is what the reason they put the fence up, that and to secure their property. So I would say that I don't have a police report with me, but I also would say that people usually do not contract me to install electric security fences unless they have a serious problem.
You're confident that that has been the occurrence here?
Pardon me?
You're confident that that has been what is occurring at this location?
Yes, sir, I am.
I did note when I went out there, I thought I saw a barbed wire fence somewhere down the street. I'm not sure who had it, but there was a barbed wire. They had a barbed wire, which I just hate because it could really cause serious injury. But anyway, I saw barbed wire on several locations. That definitely has to come down. But so I don't know if that indicates anything, and there was a presentation, but I never saw any statistics, or when I listened to the hearing, I didn't hear any statistics on that.
Let me ask you another question. Okay, you say that between the regular fence and the electric fence is how wide?
It's required by the standard to be 100 to 200 millimeters. That's somewhere between 4 and 8 inches. We usually separate it about a foot. That's because, you know, most of my guys can't read millimeters.
So if for some reason I'm a 10-year-old boy and very stupid, and I get over the first fence, and I get trapped in there, do I continually get shocked, or does it shut off at some point?
That's why we try to keep it close. That's called a zone of entrapment, and that's why we try to keep it very close in there. Because for a couple reasons. One is you don't want to have the zone of entrapment for that one specific reason. Number two is we want these two fences to be symbiotic with their relationship, because it's a much better security device to close if they're really close. And that's the other reason we want it that close. Now, as far as someone, let's say someone did get trapped in there, these wires are all spring-loaded. So it's not like a really firm fence like you would go up into with the lattice work on a chain link or anything like that. They're basically horizontal strands of wire that are spring-loaded. You can separate them very easily. So they're very easy to get through once you get through there and you're not getting shocked. Could someone stay up in there for a while? Yeah, but can they get out? If they really have to, they can. The other thing is it's safe. This is tested and labeled to an international standard for the safety of anyone actually being shocked multiple times.
I think we have that information before us, though, how safe it is in terms of all that and some of the questions that you've asked.
But I think with every one of these, we actually submit with every one that we've ever submitted, we actually submit the safety documents with it. The safety documents would be the studies that have been done on the safety of these devices. Obviously, we can't test on humans, so they're animal tests. But also the testing standard that we actually use and we test to. So those are usually submitted, and I would think we did that this time also with every one we brought in front of you.
John, do you know whether that's correct?
I don't remember seeing that.
Okay.
I had a couple of questions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Austin.
I've questioning the DBD district was not affected by the revised fence height standards that were changed. And my staff report says that electrified fences in that district are prohibited. And I would note, like the chair has, is that you not only got residential in proximity, it looks like you've got 2 churches in proximity. And this is not a new business, I don't think, is it not?
No, it's an existing business. It's been there a while.
So they have developed some sort of coping strategies over the years for trying to protect their property, and I understand their desire to do that.
They've tried to.
And, their staff report indicates they have trouble, with the security services they may be hiring and things like that. But if this was in a location, a purely industrial area where there was no residential, there were no churches, no school, no opportunity for anything other than just, adjacent businesses, I might be more inclined. And if it wasn't in a district that prohibits this. But I've got a problem with it.
And what is your problem, sir?
Just what I stated. You're in a district that prohibits electrified fences. The fence height was amended, but not in the DBD district. And you've got 2 churches and adjacent residential.
Yes, sir. It's a safe, reliable device. We have it tested to the national standards, international standards. We have done this many times in this particular district.
I don't
This is
doubt
not
that.
the only one.
Okay.
It's not the only one.
Okay.
Sir, I would be interested in, from the material that I have, I don't have information about the safety of it. And it's like I told you, if I'm a 12-year-old boy and out being a goofy 12-year-old boy and get between there, I don't want that 12-year-old boy to be killed. And so I would be interested in the safety aspect of it. I'm not necessarily opposed to this, but that is one thing that I would like to see that I have not seen. And so that's the only comment that I would make, sir.
We would be glad to provide that to you, Mr. Donaldson. If we need to do a continuous to provide that information to you, we'll be fine with that. Like I said, we've been delivering this information to the city for years. I've been coming to this body and the city council and the planning commission for over 10 years here. So I'm very familiar with this room and the bodies. But I would be glad to drop that to you in your email or run it through the staff, either way, to you too, Mr. Merchant, and you too, Ms. Lewis, if you'd like it.
You're requesting a continuance for September 20th, and we're requesting the documentation.
Yes, ma'am.
That to Mr. Wilson over here.
Mr. Wilson, you got you.
Also, in that, if you have information on the actual crime, and I don't need the reported ones, just as sort of a summary in the last year what the crime has been at that area.
Be glad to do that, Ms.
Because we don't have any of those statistics to show the hardship.
We'll be glad to do that for you.
So you're requesting to September 20th, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I move to continue this case till September the 20th.
I will, just so we don't waste your time. I hate making people come back here again and again and again, so just to not waste your time. I do think this application does need some more supporting documentation. I don't think you've established that there's a hardship here, so I think some of the crime reports will establish that. I'm not sure if you've established that this is the minimum necessary, and so any documentation that you could have that would establish that. And in addition to that, that this is in the public good or the public interest, and I think that would mean it's not going to, or there's a low likelihood that it's going to injure innocent people.
Easy enough.
Okay, I'll second Mr. Knowles' motion.
Great.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those cast your vote.
Thank you.
The continuance has been granted to September 20th.
Item number 4, case number 14515, request for a variance to the maximum square footage for directional sign and sign being located in the public right-of-way in the BC Bricktown core, located at 25 South Mickey Mantle Drive.
Hello, I am Joe Hudson with Downtown OKC. We represent the Bricktown Association, and this is to increase the wayfinding for the canal. Since 1999, when the canal was installed, there's been, I think...
Could you give us your address, please?
Sorry, 211 North Broadway, or North Robinson, Oklahoma City 73112. And so Adam Lane was unable to attend, but I'm here in his place, representing the Bricktown District, who's trying to make this project happen. And so what we're asking for is a increase in the minimum or the maximum square footage of the directional signage for the Art Peace Canal. This is to increase awareness and wayfinding for the canal. There's, I think, one small plaque currently in existence that points to the Bricktown Canal in this last 20 years that the canal has existed. So this is to help the city of Oklahoma City and tourists alike. Do you have a question?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
The reason for the signage is to increase the awareness of where the canal is. Do you have any information about that the public is not aware of the canal? Can you speak to that?
Certainly. So what I have is anecdotal evidence. If you're familiar with Chad Headington of the Bricktown Water Taxi, he's sort of the unofficial mayor of Bricktown. He is constantly having to direct people who are at his taxi booth. You can see in the picture Brickopolis, if you follow the left corner of that down, there's a little hut right there, which is the water taxi booth. He's often having people come up there to buy water taxi tickets and then having people ask, so where is the canal? Because it doesn't read as well. You're elevated right there. There's trees, there's buildings, and you know, some people are more intuitive than others, we'll just say that. But not everyone is able to figure out where the canal is all the time. And it's not just in that location. If you're driving down Sheridan or you're driving down Reno, it's only when you cross the canal on Reno that you really get a sense of where it is, looking either south to Lower Bricktown or north towards the Brickopolis building. If you're coming on Mickey Mantle, it's just not as clear that California was torn up and became a canal to everyone, especially if you're coming down Sheridan, just underneath the underpass. If you look to the right, there's, you know, a nice water feature, but again, it doesn't read very well that there's a canal there. I mean, this is sort of the heart of Bricktown, of what, and which is the heart of our Oklahoma's entertainment district, and to not have very clear signage that there's a canal there, I think is unfortunate and a disservice.
I agree with him. I live downtown. I've worked downtown. It's difficult to find the canal, especially for tourists. I grew up here, and it's still difficult to find the canal sometimes. And I can imagine that for a tourist, it could be difficult. I think that the sign is interesting. And I think that maybe a different design might attract more attention to the canal, but that's not really before the board. So it's been approved by the Bricktown Urban Design Committee. I don't think we have I think you've established the elements necessary for a variance. But those are just my thoughts.
I agree with that. Also, you're asking for the directional sign to be a total square footage of 20 feet, is that correct?
Correct.
And the design was, as he has stated earlier, it's been approved by Bricktown Urban Design, and you met certain requirements into your description of the work, is that correct?
This is correct.
Any other questions, comments?
I concur with my colleagues, and so I'd be prepared to make a motion or second a motion, or support a motion.
Sure. I'd move to approve case number 14515 for the reasons that it's met the statutory elements.
Second.
Okay, cast your votes.
Thank you.
The variance is granted.
Item number 5, case number 14521, request for a variance to the maximum size of directional signs and to maximum size and number of accessory signs in the DTD 2 Downtown Transitional General District, located at 913 West Main Street and 903 West Sheridan Avenue.
Hello, my name is Mike Pyland. I'm with Fred Jones Avenue Partners, address 204 North Robinson, Suite 700, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I'm here to request a variance for my signage, the maximum size, and the directional for 2 buildings. We're constructing an apartment complex on Main Street and on Sheridan, downtown, and we're requesting some additional signage. I believe my application describes it, and I can answer any questions.
We'd like you to go ahead and do a summary as to where the signs are located, the sizes of the structures. Now, I believe it was another company, or has it changed any kind of ownership? Was there any ownership change in any of this along the way, or the name, or anything like that, if you know that? And what the purposes are with respect to garage versus parking and directional and otherwise. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Fred Jones Avenue Partners is the development company. It also involves partners from the 21C Hotel, is the majority ownership group. So we have approximately 4 buildings in our apartment complex. The first building I'm going to reference is Building A. It's located approximately Main Street and Classen. I believe the address is 913 West Main Street. The slide up right now shows a blade sign that would be approximately halfway down our building. Our building is exceptionally long. It takes over 1.5 blocks length, total length. This is our main lobby entrance. I believe this sign was previously approved, and this is a name change that was required. There's 2 more signs associated with this building. One of them is the entrance to the parking garage directional sign. We thought it'd be nice to have a little notice to the public that this is an open garage for public parking. And our third sign would be on the west end of the building, approximately 5 stories height. It would say the name of our project, West Village. It is slightly larger than the maximum size allowed.
This matter was presented, is that correct, and recommended for approval to us, is that correct?
Yes.
On July 19th, 2018, is that correct?
I think so.
And so you're basically, as I understand it, it's a lot of it, some of it's still under construction. It's hard to access, actually. It's blocked, the street's blocked off. I think Sheridan is a little bit. It's a huge, huge building, or buildings, and it would be difficult to find where you're going and what you're doing. And certainly the signage that you're pointing out and asking for, the maximum size of directional signs and the number of accessory signs. How many accessory signs are you asking for again?
There's only 3 signs that I'm asking for on that building A.
And you're not actually asking, two of your accessory signs are not really that much greater in size than what's allowed on the 100 square feet. Is that correct?
Correct.
Any questions from the board?
I recalled you mentioning that a prior sign was approved, and then you changed the name, and so could you elaborate on that?
When we first started thinking about this project, we didn't have our final name set, so we called it the Residences. And we went through our building permit application process with the name of the project as the Residences. Now we've decided to change our name to the West Village Apartments, West Village.
Did you receive a variance for that sign, for the residences, or, I guess that's what I'm asking, is did you get this approved before, and you're just here because you changed the name of or something else changed, or?
I can say my original building permit went through DDRC and was approved as the Residences.
Anybody in opposition? I don't have anybody signed up to speak otherwise, either for or against.
I'm going to support the application. If there's no more discussion, I'd make a
Any more
motion.
discussion?
Make a motion to approve case number 14521.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's cast your votes. The variance has been granted.
Thank you.
Item number 6, case number 14522, request for variance to the minimum 5-acre parcel size requirement and the minimum 150 foot of frontage to a public or private street in the AA Agricultural District located at 14701 South Pottawatomie Road.
Alan Hall, 21700 Southeast 149th, New Wall, Oklahoma. I'm requesting this variance from my brother. He is actually displaced at this time, and I'm trying to give him a place to live, a portion of land to live on. Plain and simple.
Describe not only the hardship, but discuss the subject property, the size, and
The property
deal with your
size that-
access agreements,
I'm
a
sorry.
little bit about the statutory requirements. So why that you need this variance?
That's the only property I have available for him to actually live on.
Can you pull the microphone just a little
Yeah.
closer to you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's the property that I have that he's available to live on. It's actually 4.84 acres. It's supposed to be 5 acres lot size to be able to move a mobile home onto. So that's the purpose of it. We're trying to give him a place to live. He's actually displaced at this time.
Okay, the staff, the item that you put together in your application does not address the statutory basis for your granting of the variance, so we need to go into it a little bit. Why would this create, if the ordinance were enforced and we didn't grant it, why would this create an unnecessary hardship to you, and who owns all of the properties?
Me and my mom and dad were actually, our names are on all the properties. My brother is currently living at my mom and dad's house. If this is not granted, he'd have no place to live besides with my parents. That's the reason for it.
Brother disabled or anything?
No, he is not. He is currently here.
I believe we have a couple of people signed up to speak. I believe you may.
Yes, ma'am.
So basically, but you have a filed cross-access agreement, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
A filed cross-access agreement?
As far as that, yes, an easement to get to the property.
So how are people crossing the property now, or
There's an easement, there's a 20-foot easement that the Jones Brothers actually had given my father when he purchased the property. It's a 20-foot easement that goes all the way up to the property now. And the two gentlemen in question, the Joneses, they actually are here now, Bill and Joel.
any other questions of the applicant? We have Jerry, is it Jones? Yes, would you like to speak? Would you like to come forward and speak in support of the application? I have you as, do you want us to add anything to the application? You need to come forward, give your name. I have two people, Joel Jones and your writing is as good as mine. Joel Jones and I think Jerry Jones.
I am Jerry Jones, and brother Joe Jones. We own the property. And we sold the land to their dads quite a few years ago, and I'm pretty good at this. And when we sold the land, the road was the problem. We sold 20 feet of our land, get back to the 5. It's a desert. It's a no man's land. Now, and I ain't very good at this kind of stuff. But anyhow, how would you say it? We would like to grant them the roadway back to their place and stuff back yonder. Or it's just that it's no man's land, you can't get back there, and the other roads in other places filled off, but that our place only. And there's no road back to it. So we sold some of our land to get back to it. We had to sell his dad's land.
And so, sir, do I understand that you support the application?
I can barely hear you on that.
I'm sorry. Do you support the application?
Yes, I'm supporting them move back under, yes. And we're helping them out and when we can.
Thank you.
Joel Jones? Yes.
My name is Joel Jones. I live 1421 South Pond Road. I've been living there for a long time and been knowing the Halls for a long time. And I support them on the road there. We've been helping them out by loaning tools, using our tractors to make roadway and stuff. And I have no problem with it. I support it.
I want to support the application. The applicant has shown that he does not have the full use of this land. The variance request is minimum, and therefore, if there's no opposition or more discussion, I'd make a motion to approve case number 14522.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the variances to the minimum 5-acre lot size requirement and minimum 150 frontage to private street. All of those, cast your votes. Is it me not voting? Yeah, it's me not voting, sorry. It passed. The variance is
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Item number 7, case number 14523, request for a variance to permit maneuvering on street right-of-way in the HP Historic Preservation District located at 501 Northwest 21st Street.
Dustin Waylock from JHBR Architecture, 600 Northeast 4th Street. We are asking for a variance to locate a dumpster access drive in a public right-of-way. This little portion of the project is part of a larger project to add a gymnasium storm shelter at Wilson Elementary. During that schematic design process, we worked with a group of people from that represented the community in that area, and they expressed a strong concern to sort of make that back of house condition at the back of the school, the north side of the school there, a little bit better by relocating the existing dumpster into the newly proposed dumpster enclosure. It's maybe a little hard to see on the site plan, but the dumpster access drive is located about 2 feet inside that public right-of-way. If you have any questions.
If you could go back to the drive area that you photographed, can we go back to the photograph that has that drive area? Where in that area are you going to put the dumpster? On the end of that, or what?
If
On
you,
the,
if you see the tree on the top right, it's basically dead center with that tree. So even that tree will sort of conceal the dumpster enclosure as well.
and so moving it to that location will not interfere with the traffic. That drive
Correct.
is used for what, dropping off students or what?
Drop off and pick up, and as well as the fire lane for any fire trucks if there was some sort of incident.
And the other's in the center of the building, and it's
The other
kind of-
is this, it's in a parking lot, and it's facing a residential neighborhood. In that area, it's a historical neighborhood, so everyone really cares about their property values, and this came up as one of these extra items that the Oklahoma City Public Schools, our owner, was willing to spend a little extra money to improve that situation and fulfill their requirements.
How much of this drive is going to be blocked off by this? I mean, I'm looking at this, and it looks like it'll take half of a lane.
I'm not quite sure what you mean. Like it's, are you talking about in an event of a trash truck? They would coordinate, the trash service would coordinate the drop-off times with the school, and that's how they would sort of get around that. Are you concerned with like drop-off and stuff like that? Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm comfortable getting in the way of students at a tornado shelter in Oklahoma, so I think if there's a way to get this passed, I would tend to approve or support your application.
Oh, and I didn't mention this. The dumpster enclosure, it's the exterior materials, the same as the proposed gymnasium, and it's designed to where it's kind of tucked back in that corner of the gymnasium, so it's just going to kind of flow. It's not going to be, here's the proposed building, here's the dumpster enclosure. So it's going to kind of be hidden or blend in with the newly proposed gymnasium.
Make a motion to approve the application 14523.
Second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 14523. All in favor, cast your votes, or cast your votes, period. Did I not vote again? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Item number 8, case number 14524, request for a variance to the maximum sign display area to permit a sign located in the site triangle and required landscaping in the C3 Community Commercial District located at 3508 Northwest 23rd Street.
Hi, my name is Bruce Edwards. I'm with Delmark Signs, and the address is 4040 South I-35 Service Road in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73129. We had a situation where we had a storm hit a sign, and it broke some welds on the where the poles are sleeved into each other to make it stage up to get higher. It had broke the welds, and we were going to go back and re-weld it, but we find out where we needed to pull the pipes out and put rings on underneath where they sleeve down into the pipes so we can weld them more securely. And to do that, we was needing to remove the sign. We removed the sign. We talked to the city and seeing if we could just do it without a permit first before we did anything. And it said that we needed to give them some information, and I did. And it come to find out that the sign was 50 square feet past the maximum 200 they can have in a C3. But what we're doing is wanting a variance for the extra square footage for the sign and to be able to not have the landscaping down at the bottom since it's in the parking lot and a bunch of parking spaces around it. And it's in the site triangle, but the site triangle is at the property line, and the corner the highway department has an easement there of like 50 feet, and it's set back off the road 50 feet or more. It's really not at the corner of the, and it's, it's really not too bad, I mean, in the site triangle to where it has any blockage for traffic, vision. And then, that's about it. I just wanted to know if you'd all let us have the square footage and
Okay, I have a couple questions. Are you going to shorten the pole a little bit?
Well, we were
mentioned
going
it,
to,
I
but
saw
I
it.
find out today that they would like to keep the height that they had, which was 50 feet.
So you're not going to shorten the pole, but is the cabinet what I saw at the bottom of your pole that presently is located there? Because I went out the location, and I saw something down at the bottom of the pole. Is that what
That's-
you're going to be putting up at the top?
Yes, it just goes straight up and sets on poles.
And the problem you found out is when the thing fell down because it probably wasn't tied or welded together properly in the
Correct.
first place. Of course, you have Oklahoma wind, and that can blow a lot of things away. Is that you found out you didn't have a permit for that size, or do you know?
Yes, it had been put up, I think, like 20 years ago or more, and I don't know who done it, but they didn't get a permit either to do that. And
Okay, I need you to address the landscaping issue because you're asking for a waiver on that. I didn't see anything but concrete all over that place. I couldn't
Yeah.
see a place where, absent digging up the concrete, that you would have to be able to plant anything. If you would like to address that at all, or
Well,
pressing that too.
we would like to not be able to put it, not have to put it in at all, if that's possible.
Board members?
Is the 50-foot sign height allowed?
50-foot height is allowed. It's the 50 square feet over two. He's got 250 square footage.
So the variance request, I just want to make sure before, the variance request is for the square footage and the landscape.
Square footage,
requirement.
the site triangle, and the landscape.
I'm familiar with this location. I'm going to support his application.
I can get on board with you with the landscaping and the site triangle. The size is my only hesitation. This could be an opportunity. I mean, we started with an unpermitted sign. And this could be an opportunity to go back to the drawing board and get it as close to the code as possible by creating a smaller sign. I don't see where there's a hardship related to the size, other than the fact that you had an unpermitted sign that everyone's kind of gotten used to, and they've gotten used to that, having that visibility, but they didn't get a variance for that in the first place. And so I could support two of the variances, but not the extra square footage, unless you wanted to amend your application or something.
By the way, or any individuals want to speak on this matter, either for or against?
He's with Hibden Tires.
Good afternoon. My name's Roy Henson. I'm the store manager at 3508 Northwest 23rd Street, Ibden Stars Plus. And I do, Mr. Merchant, really do think that the size and visibility of that sign does matter, because it is, the positioning of that is for the highway purpose. And with the underpass at that road, if it's lowered or smaller, you really can't see the sign unless you've passed the exit. And of course, then at that point, you're going to the next store, you're going somewhere else. And to me, it does help generate more tax revenue if they can see the sign. And we have had a tax revenue decrease in our business since that sign has come down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see in the current application any supporting evidence for me that speaks to a variance for the size. Again, other than everyone's kind of gotten used to it, but for me, that doesn't meet the statutory standards. I'm just one voice on the board, but that's kind of currently where I sit. I think maybe if you amended the application and came back, again, I hate, having people come back over and over, but there's nothing here that shows me that it can't be seen from a certain distance, or, 200 square feet is not sufficient.
Well, there are some photographs that are attached. They showed the northbound, and they showed a couple of the exhibits, showed what the sign, I guess, looked like at some point in time when it was up. Now, if it were a little shorter, you still would be able to see it.
Well, you would be able to see it, but when it's lowered, actually, when you be able to see it, you have already passed the exit to get to our store. The biggest purpose that they had of that position and the height of it is that long off-ramp that it has around that curve. You actually, with the height of it, if you lower it, then you're not going to see it until you're already starting to go underneath the underpass of that freeway, because the freeway is so much lower at that position, and you're going to drive right on by it.
Yeah, I think the height of it is fine. It's just the overall square footage. So you could conceivably have something that's 200 square feet at the same height that it currently sits, but it fits within the code, and we have to grant less variances for your sign. So that's kind of where I said I can be outvoted by the number of people that are
The
here.
fork in the road for you as the applicant is, I support your application as is and would make a motion to approve it. If it is not passed, you're going to be denied. You could also ask for a continuance and consider revising your application and moving your square footage down in compliance with the points that Mr. Merchant is making. So I'll make a motion to approve your application, but you risk having your application denied, or you can ask for a continuance. Is that appropriate, Chair?
Yes.
And I'm also not saying that I would necessarily deny a variance on the size. I'm just saying there's not enough here for me to feel comfortable supporting a variance for the size. So if you're comfortable with the two variances and not a variance with regard to the size, I would move to approve the application. If you wanted to support the application for the square footage variance, you could come back with supporting documentation and potentially have another vote on that issue.
Are there any other people here wanting to speak on the matter? I don't have anybody who signed up. So what would you like to do? Would you like to continue the matter, to think about it and talk about it to each other?
Because I think in terms of the sign height, you're fine. I think in terms of waiving the landscaping requirements, you're fine. The only issue that exists is the square footage.
We would have to do the separate motions on the variances to approve those with and the denial, or the approval on the other, so make sure the vote would be accurate as to which one it's for. What is your pleasure?
I believe we would like to ask for a continuance, because it is something that I would have to confer with my area and regional managers and see what would transpire on that, because it's kind of going above my head on that. I was here to represent, to try and get the sign grandfathered back in, to put back to its original state after repairs.
That said, I don't know what the other board members, I can be outvoted here, so I don't know what the other board members want to do. If they'd like some more
Part
information.
of the problem with the vote is that it takes 3 votes to prevail, and we are short 1 member. So Mr. Merchant, Mr. Donaldson, Diane can't make a motion, but she can vote. And of course, I can make a motion and vote. So you have to have 3 out of the 4 of us to prevail.
I believe you mentioned a continuance. Is that correct? Do you still want one?
Yes.
Okay.
Make a motion to continue case number 14524 to September 20th. Is that enough time?
Yeah.
Okay. I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your vote. The motion for continuance to September 20th passed.
Okay. Thank you.
Item number 9, case number 14525, request for a variance to the maximum 60-foot building height to permit a flagpole in the PUD 1143 district located at 14343 North MacArthur Boulevard.
Good afternoon. Tim Johnson with Johnson & Associates, here on behalf of the applicant. Church of the Servant, United Methodist Church on North MacArthur. My address is 1 East Sheridan, Suite 200, 73104. So as the application states, we are requesting that the church be permitted to put a 150-foot high flagpole on their property. And we're here because the current zoning only allows a building height of 60 feet. And in discussion with the staff, we kind of went back and forth about it's not a building, but we decided we better come here and do this right. So that's why we're here. One of the important things that the staff report pointed out, and I'll reiterate, is the location of the, so this is north, here's the church building, here's the outside perimeter drive for their parking, and our location of the flagpole is within a few hundred feet of our south boundary, which abuts commercial uses. There's Brahms, a bank, and then multi-story buildings up front onto Memorial. And so we have placed it in a location that is fairly far removed. We're 500 feet from our west property line, and we're 750 feet from our east property line, and we are over about 1,000 feet from the nearest residence in Gaillardia. And so our hardship is we have a building height restriction of 60 feet, which is also the unfavorable comment. So, I mean, obviously the church wants to use this flagpole to show their support for our country, servicemen.
I have we have no protests, correct, and we have no one to speak on this matter. I do have a question. That bank that's next, that's next to Brahms, has a flagpole and it has a flag flying. Do you know the height of that flagpole?
I do not. I tried to look on Google Earth when I got here because I thought of the same thing. They're permitted to have a flag this high.
I realize because of the different zoning, but I was curious.
Right
It
here.
didn't look like it was 150.
I don't think it is.
It
Maybe
mean,
100, I don't know, but I don't think it's...
I thought that was a nice size. Whatever they had, I don't know how to count the feet, but that didn't look like it was 150 feet. I mean, I'm just asking.
I would agree with you, but I don't know exactly what it is. One of the things is that for the height request is the visibility from Memorial frontage road. You can't, with the tall medical buildings pushed up close to the Memorial frontage road, you won't be able to see north to see that flag. And they'd like for it to be visible from all around.
But I can see the bank flag from your church, from the church. I mean, if I were in the parking lot of the church,
Right.
I can look and see the flag of the bank. And I just didn't know what the height was.
So if you, on the exhibit they have up, I apologize, I didn't print one that wide. It says medical buildings that front onto the frontage road. I agree with you. From the church, you can see their flag. From MacArthur, you could see the bank flag. If I'm on the frontage road, I would not be able to see over those buildings to see that high of a flag.
I'm not sure that justifies the hardship to go that tall. I'm just asking.
The staff report indicates that the flag, as requested, would be permitted in that other district. So, and next to, I guess, the bank's property. And
Yeah,
it
the
would be
bank is
permitted.
on.
So the fact that they didn't do that.
Yeah, the commercial property, it would be allowed, obviously to the east in the residential, it's not, but in the property to the south, it would be, which is commercial.
And part of the reasoning of the applicant is that they really do want the flag to be seen from a distance. And if they cannot get it that high, then they don't necessarily want to put up a flag. They really are interested in putting up a flag that at a certain specific height. So that's why the application is so specific.
I admire that the church is going through this much effort to get a flagpole. I love that. I'm not convinced that it's a structure, and I'm glad that you've agreed to limit it to a flagpole and only a flagpole. I would support the application.
We would do that.
I'll support the application.
We need a motion and a second.
I don't see anyone else here to speak on it, so I'd move to approve case number 14525 for the reasons that it meets the statutory requirements.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item 14525. Please cast your votes.
Thank you all.
And pass.
Item number 10, case number 14526, request for a variance to the platted front yard setback and the minimum lot width in the RA single-family 1-acre rural residential district located at 11001 Jonah Drive.
Yes, Tony Meek, 215 North Riverside Drive, Moore, Oklahoma. I'm the builder representing the property owner. And the neighborhood, it's 42 lots. It's a gated neighborhood. All other properties show a 40-foot front build line. There's 2 lots that showed a pie shape, and because of that pie shape, there was you had to go out so far to get the width that was needed. Notified all lots are sold, besides actually those 2 lots. The homeowner being one, the property owner I'm representing, but just trying to seek to not go all the way down to 40 foot because it does get too short, but to go to 90 feet, I believe, still a little further back than most, just to fit the structure and pool and shop that they're requesting.
I've almost begun to think some of these things ought to be called the pie-shaped variants, because we have seen a lot of these that we see are
They
for some
become tough
reason
builds.
it just happens when there's a pie-shaped
Yeah.
lot. It's problematic. I wish people, when they get the pie shape, would do extra work to make sure the measurements are there. It'd be better, but
Right.
I just voiced.
That's not
I
our
have
first
no
either
objection
to
this one.
come and request for sure.
Any questions? Nobody's in the audience to comment. Any questions or concerns?
I'd move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve 14526. Cast your votes. Oh, did I do it? Thank you. Sorry.
Thank y'all.
We have finished our agenda. Do we have any, well, there wouldn't be any additional items. Do we have any items or reports or anything from board committees, board members, or the municipal counselor's office that you'd like to add?
We could add that today is Cindy's birthday, 29.
Make a motion to wish Cindy a happy birthday.
I'm not saying.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay. Okay, so. Are we ready to adjourn? So we are adjourned.